Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our AWE, Alumni Workplace Engagement Business Forum. Today, we have a very, very exciting topic around multi-generational workforces, managing and engaging multi-generational workforces, and have a very esteemed panelist as part of this program. My name is John Borghese. I'm the Director of Career and Industry Engagement within the Office of Alumni Engagement at Rutgers University. And just a little bit of logistical talk here. We encourage all of you to engage in this conversation. So if you have any questions, please enter those questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to as many of them as we can within the time allotted for this program. But at this point, I would like to turn this over and have our panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll get into this dialogue that I'm very eager to hear, and I hope you are as well. So, Christina, would you like to start and introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much, John, and excited to be here with everyone today. As John mentioned, my name is Christina Marciona. I am actually a VP at Prudential. I lead our financial management talent development team, and what I'm really in charge of doing is kind of leading and setting the strategic direction for our early talent and our mid-career programs that support or span across our financial management functions. So that includes risk, actuarial, finance, and our investment office, as well as our HR mid-career program as well. I've been with Prudential for about 16 years. I know we don't hear that often, and I know we're going to get into the multiple generational topic, but I've grown up at Prudential. I started as an intern. I went through our finance leadership development program, which interestingly enough, I'm actually managing now from an HR standpoint. So I did start my career at Prudential in finance, probably half and half. So half my time at Prudential was in the financial organization, and the second half has been in talent acquisition. So I've been in this role leading our early talent programs for just about a year. But prior to that, I did a stint in our learning and development function for a couple of years, and then transferred over to talent acquisition, where I supported recruiting of all sizes. So executive recruiting, our experience hiring, and now here we are in the early talent space. So direct exposure to multiple generations on a daily basis. So excited to be here with all of you. Lisa, I'll turn it over to you if you want to do an intro next.
Great, thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Jordan. I'm a Rutgers graduate. Proud, are you? I'm currently at JPMorgan as the firm-wide head of early career program management. What that means is I'm responsible for the internship globally. We had 4,100 interns that started this summer. The strategy for all the analyst and associate programs at JPMorgan, so we have 31 of them, and I'm directly responsible for the corporate analyst development program, the human resource analyst development program, and we're creating a new operations analyst program. So similar to Christine, it's bringing people from university into a 2-year program at the firm. My background is leadership development, management development, HRBA. So I've had a variety of roles within financial services firms in HR, as well as a tech company and Accenture, a little bit of consulting. And I've been at JPMorgan for 11 years. And I'll pass it over to Bill.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Bill Castellano. I'm a professor of human resource management at Rutgers School of Management and Labor Relations. I've been here for 17 years. Prior to that, I had about 25 years in different kinds of HR roles in banking and in investment banking. Last 2 roles there was overseeing organizational development and overseeing global talent management. At Rutgers, my research has been primarily focused on employee engagement, managing the multi-generational workforce, the gig workers. I also have a concentration of interest in employee ownership and equity compensation. So really interested in participating in this program and listening to the other panelists and answering all of your questions. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bill and Lisa and Christina. Looking forward to this conversation. So why don't we just get right into it, and I'll throw out some topics and questions around those topics, and eager to hear this. So we have 5 generations now working together, from the baby boomers to, tells you what generation I'm from. I don't know what the newest one is. So
Gen Z.
Gen Z, thank you. So it also tells you what generation I came from, because I remember that one. So expectations. When I entered the workforce a long time ago, expectations were set and became ingrained behaviors for me. So now that we have these 5 generations working together and expectations differ within each one, how are these distinctions in expectations being handled within your organizations? And we'll go down that path first, and then Bill, I'd like to hear your ideas from a research perspective. So Lisa, Christina, who would like to start?
I can start. So I actually think that's a really interesting question, because if we think about expectations, even in terms of tools that we use, so we have, and we were talking earlier, we have tools to communicate via Skype, which is links. We have something at the firm called Symphony. I don't know if anyone else has Symphony here. We have Microsoft Teams. And the way the different generations communicate is really different, right? So what's the right way and the best approach moving forward to get everyone on board? My approach is, we had a global team offsite. I'd flown people in October from India, from APAC, from London, from North America. And we actually talked about it as a team. What tools do we want to use moving forward to better communicate effectively for everyone on the team, so everyone feels supported? Because we did have a lot of miscommunication and things weren't working. So getting that collaboration and buy-in from everyone at the start, where we create work streams. One of our work streams is communication, is branding. One is tools. How do we best want to collaborate and communicate across the team that works for everyone? So like having a voice and feeling heard was really important to me, for the team to feel included in this process, because it wasn't always perfect. And the role I'm in today started in January. It was a newly created role. So different functions were coming together from different parts of the firm. And, it wasn't easy at first. We're getting better at communicating. We kept the team intact the way it was. And, we're working more efficiently, and it's evolving. And then even if you think of interns, what they're looking for and what motivates them is very different from a baby boomer. And they're looking for flexibility. They're looking to be heard. So I guess adopting your style based on, what people are looking for, and asking them, being clear on what motivates you or what helps you in terms of communication. And then outwardly, I tell the same thing, what I'm looking for as a manager.
Christina.
Well, yeah, piggybacking off of all of that. So one of the things I was going to mention was work style preferences, and just really understanding, how we're communicating with each other, what we prefer, what are our habits, what are our behaviors. And I think it's really at the onset, understanding what that is and what that looks like, and appreciating it. For what I do in my role, managing early talent development, like Lisa, so we have interns, we have, entry-level hires that are going through undergraduate rotational programs, and they're being placed in multiple roles and multiple functions on teams that have folks of all different shapes and sizes. And so it's really equipping the managers of those teams to understand the talent that we're bringing in, and the wants and the needs and the desires of this, generation, and understanding that they work differently. They're coming from a COVID environment where they've been virtual for 2.5 years, and they're able to navigate this notion of flexibility and hybrid work environments. And they're still able to get the job done, be heads down, be high performers. But some of the teams that they're on and the managers that they're working for are not from that, that style. So they've been used to that in-person FaceTime, in the office kind of interactions. And it's been interesting kind of marrying the two when you think about early talent development programs and making sure that the managers and the teams that they're working on understand their work style preferences and who they are as individuals. But also for our early talent folks, making sure that they recognize that they're going to be joining teams of multiple generations and they need to accommodate and flex where it's appropriate. So a lot of times we try to equip, again, the managers and try to level set around expectations and give them the tools and resources to navigate, this territory of multiple generations. Another thing is collaboration too. Again, making sure that the voice is heard at the table. So a lot of times these folks are coming in at the early talent entry level, roles, and they have a lot to offer. They have a voice, they have ideas, and we want to make sure that they feel empowered and their voices are being heard and they're being valued. And we want to make sure that the managers and the teams that they're on are certainly embracing that and welcoming that. So it's making sure that those expectations are set at the onset, especially in my world where we're, again, focusing more on the early talent side.
And Bill, how about you from an academic standpoint?
Well, from a research perspective, I think it's important to realize that each of these different generations came into the workplace in very different environments with clearly different expectations. Boomers entered the workplace, it was a much more stable environment. They actually had an expectation that they would be there till retirement. So they were very work-centric. Gen X's, they were the first generation to kind of see massive layoffs and the turmoil in the economy. They're more interested in being independent. They like to have a little bit more flexibility, mostly balancing work and family. Gen Y, they came into the workplace that was very optimistic. They got a lot of attention, certainly growing up in school with parents. So their expectation is to really seek more meaningful type work, career growth. And I think Gen Z, they're interesting because they did experience the recession, certainly of the 2008, 2009. They've experienced a lot of hardships in the economy. I think they're a little bit more pragmatic, more entrepreneurial, but they also, I think, are more interested in career opportunities. So understanding your employees, that's why we survey employees to kind of get a barometer of what their expectations are and what will motivate these different generational cohorts.
Thanks, Bill. Well, I'll tell you, we must have started off on a great topic because we got a question right off the bat. So this is fabulous. So the question that came from our participants is, in Gen Z, do you see that they can differentiate between expectations and entitlement?
Well,
I'm curious, Bill, what you think, because I have experiences that are coming to fruition every day that I'm surprised.
Again, I think Gen Z is more pragmatic. I think what you're describing, generally speaking, is more of a characteristic of Gen Y, the Millennials. They're the ones that I think need a lot more attention. I think from the research that I've done with Gen Z, which clearly they're the youngest workers, they seem to be a little bit more pragmatic. But they also will be quick to leave, like millennials, if they're not satisfied with what they're experiencing in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, you were going to say something?
No, I was curious on your opinion. So one thing that we found with the analysts and interns that I'm really surprised at. So the motivators are very, very different, but comp is definitely one, flexibility. And the flexibility is something that isn't flexible. Like we offer at JPMorgan hybrid, it's 3 days in the office and 2 days virtual. So you have that roadmap on what we're looking for, but they want a different flexibility in terms of what works for them personally and how can they add to, the bottom line, having a voice. They're asking for things that I'm really surprised that we wouldn't have asked for. right? And that voice being heard, they want to be heard in every meeting and be included in every meeting. And it's just not the way we've always operated. So adjusting our styles to see what makes a difference, that they're heard, that they're included, and that they can lead. So they want to lead things, and giving them that opportunity to shine, I think is really great. One thing's with millennials though, that's a little bit different too. They want constant feedback and real-time feedback. What I found in managing different generations as well is the feedback is key, and almost daily feedback. So I really think it's interesting. And Christine, you mentioned about education. I think it's so important to equip managers on the different styles and what to do in the situational leadership. That's something that we're working on, and we gave them, a little bit, but we need to equip them and give them a lot more than we have.
Yeah. And Lisa, you're absolutely right. The interns are coming in, and comp, yes, very much a driver for, their career aspirations, but they want diversity of experience, and they want it from day one. They want to know that there's growth. They want to know that they're working on the best of the best projects, which again, rightfully so, right? They're high potential talent, and at least in the case of the programs that I'm managing. And so it's really, their expectations are so high coming in, and they know they have options. And so if we're not able to deliver and, fulfill that need for them, they will go and find it somewhere else aside from compensation. So it's really kind of striking this balance between giving them the total rewards package, but also making sure that they have the opportunities and the experiences that are going to get them to where they themselves want to be, because they know they're in the driver's seat. So it's just an interesting notion.
What does it mean at the end of, because I have diversity of experience from my programs as well. We feel you learn through experience. That's the best way to learn. We provide training and tools, but the best way to learn is on the job, right? Stretching yourself. But they want to see, and I think this is really a great thing. Where can I be in 5 years? And what's my roadmap for success? And that clear transparency is important at the onset.
Yeah, we've even changed our recruiting strategy. So we're going on campus, and we are actually laying out, for the most part, and I hope maybe some of my Prudential folks are on here and my recruiters, but we're laying out exactly where they could be interning, where they could be from a full-time standpoint. Whereas in years past, it was just enough to say, hey, do you want to join the Prudential Financial internship program? And it kind of stopped there, and they get their placements at some point, prior to their start date. But now they're asking for more of this information up front, because again, they want to know what's in it for them.
So to my panelists, we are getting just feeded with or fed with questions here. So we may have to divert off of our script that we talked about a little bit. But one of the things that I want to just talk a little bit more about, because prior to getting into higher ed, I spent time in consulting, primarily in the learning and development, organizational development work, environment. And we always talked about how to increase an employee's standing within an organization by learning more and stretching themselves, Lisa, and as you mentioned. So how has education to the various generations changed, or based upon your observations over, during your experience and how this is being delivered to the multiple generations in the workplace?
Mm-hmm. So I think from my perspective, it's not just about education, it's about that sense of community, right? So we're very intentional. So speaking of hybrid and all of this context, we're intentional on what should be in person with the sense of community building. Because if you're smart, right, you can learn. It's hiring for that aptitude for people that are intellectually curious, and we'll train you, right, if you don't have the skill set. So we focus on building the sense of community with training at induction, and we want to acclimate them to the firm, have them understand the bigger picture about what we do, and then we do skills training along the way. So we have interrotational training, we have tool training every month to build their technical skill set. And in essence, we're creating generalists that can do a variety of jobs, right? Transferable skills are so important. But what we do is we teach you how to fish, and find the resources. So I think building skills along the way, whether it's through training, whether it's through development, whether it's through experiences, is key, right? And just being in different areas and cross line of business experiences, you have a wider lens. So you have really that diversity of experience that people are looking for, right? So if you're smart, you can learn is our philosophy, and we'll train you depending on what the topic is or skill or, situation.
So Bill, from a research side, eager to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, well, I think each generation has a different learning style. Not surprisingly, again, they grew up in different environments, from exclusively in person to blended to on demand. So, it's a combination of their own personalities as well as the environment, again, that they grew up in. I think boomers, again, more traditional, like in person, want to be really focused on the information. Gen X, much more collaborative. They want to be connected with people. They look at educational opportunities as a way of developing social capital as well, as in addition to the specifics of learning. Gen Y, I think, again, not a coincidence. They entered the world where there's a lot of blended learning, searching and exploring. So they like that kind of flexibility. And, the word out now on Gen Z is they're the ones that really want this self-paced, on-demand, give me it when I need it, in different kinds of formats, and just connect me to the knowledge. So very, very different learning styles and different ways of creating training programs that I think would be meaningful to these different generational cohorts.
Christina, anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, very much agree with Lisa. We have a lot of that at Prudential, blended, and to Bill's point too, it's blended learning, on the job, on demand, a whole mix of that. But the other thing Prudential is also doing, and this could be from a career journey perspective, but also from an L&D standpoint, education, is these notions of gigs. And so what we've started to do at Prudential is offer gig assignments. So there's small bite-sized chunks of work that is in addition and above what your daily job is. And what you can go off and do is learn something new. And in some cases, there's a skill that's required to do it. So you have to be able to present or hit the ground running. But there's other gigs where you can go in and learn something new and kind of get some exposure to a new team, a new function, a new area. And it then allows you to showcase what you're able to do. So it's interesting in this world where, we're doing our day-to-day job, but we're also finding ways to do new and different things in this environment of a gig. So it's just, again, it's a new innovative way. I know other companies are doing it. It's not a new thing per se, but for Prudential, it's new. And then we're giving people the opportunities to do on the job type training in a real world scenario. So just wanted to highlight that too.
Thanks, Christina. So let's switch over to values and workplace values and how that is being conveyed across these multiple generations. So we have a question from an attendee that with so many younger workers, Gen Z and Millennials having worked virtually so well during COVID, how do you ensure that they understand your company culture and values when you're not able to get together as frequently?
So for JPMorgan, it's really about purpose and what's our purpose by our actions. So some of the things that we've done, I think we're excellent. I think we surpass a lot of companies out there with the things that we do. So one thing was even geopolitics, right? Our actions with that. So that's how we show our values. So with Russia and the war in Ukraine, we actually moved employees out of Russia. And for the Ukraine, we set people up in Poland. And we have people there. We have training programs. We actually have, I was doing some research on December 13th, we have a training day for, Ukrainians, learn more about Ukraine, whether their food, their culture, bringing that on board. We have a military jobs mission to find jobs for military. We also have areas that need help and building. We actually try to support people in every way that we can. So last week, or actually it was 2 weeks ago, I sat on a panel for the New York City Jobs Council, and our CEO, Jamie Dimon, was on there as well. And it's personally really important to him to get jobs for people from underrepresented backgrounds. So for community colleges, we have professors there. And he personally wants to find people jobs, and they ask, how can we help get these people jobs at JPMorgan? So that's how I think it shows our values as a company and a firm by our actions. We also have diversity, equity, inclusion. Our philosophy is you belong here. And everyone from every background, culture is welcomed. We have business resource groups to represent other areas as well. Everything that we do, we support in finance, minority owned businesses, whether it's women, in every area. I think our actions really define what our purpose and our values are.
Thanks, Lisa. How about you, Christina? Within
Yeah,
Prudential.
So at Prudential, yep, we have BRGs. So it's interesting because Prudential is a very traditional insurance company. So pre-COVID, we were all in the office. Again, FaceTime was very important, and being together was important. And there's something unique about Prudential where, people say, why do you stay for so long? And it really is the people and the culture that drive, the wants for people to stay for so long. And so we have the BRGs, we have diversity and inclusion, equity commitments that we're kind of striving towards. We do pro bono, where we have people within our finance organization go out to companies within the Newark area, because that's our home base, and help them with some business strategies that we're looking to do. We have our corporate social responsibility group, where we're all invested in paying forward and giving back, even in a virtual component, in a virtual environment. Rob Falzon, our vice chairman, Charlie Lowry, are doing sessions, virtually around strategy to make sure that people are feeling like they're involved, they're included, they have a voice, even in this virtual world where we can't all be walking the halls together. So it really is this notion of getting people together, making sure there's this sense of community, inclusion, people feel like they have a place here, they know what's going on, they know who's who, and they can drive impact and outcomes within the organization. So there's a whole host of things that are happening, but very similar to JPMorgan, but some things that we're doing at Pru.
Bill, anything you would like to add?
Well, I think the values that both JPMorgan and Prudential communicate are right on the money. The corporate social responsibility, diversity, what have you. I think implicit in that question, though, is I think the challenge for young workers is you do need, I think, to observe behavior, and that's very difficult in a purely virtual world. So, there has been some research indicating that, this pure virtual environment, has had some difficulty, particularly for young workers. You can't duplicate working with people, observing your managers, observing your peers. That's how you really understand the culture of a firm. And there's a lot of implicit kinds of things that are hard to communicate. So I think, having if you are going to be offering flexibility, which I think is important, there should be, particularly for young workers, opportunity for them to come to the office on a regular basis to, again, understand the behaviors of the company and observe the key people that influence the culture of the organization.
So I want to add something that you said, Bill. So modeling behavior, we are hybrid, as I mentioned. And we had an analyst that when they worked from home, they didn't log in. They thought it was free time. So the manager called me and said, are they allowed to do that? Is that what it is? Because on Skype, they were away for 21 hours or something such as that. I'm like, no, they're supposed to work when they're home. So making sure people understand what hybrid means practically. And when you work from home, it's still a work day.
Exactly.
So we had a question come in going back to values and expectations, and wanted to get your thought on that. I guess we struck a nerve with that topic. So given these differing generational values and expectations that you shared, how do you see the future of the workplace taking shape as Gen Y and Gen Z start to eventually age into positions of authority and decision making? So Bill, would you like to start off? We can start off with your research.
Yeah, well, I think, again, both generations are very achievement oriented. They value meaningful work. And if they don't experience that, they're also pretty quick to leave. So I think you know, they're going to be the generation that is probably going to influence a lot what we do, you know, particularly in human resources with different kinds of policies and programs that make the environment a little bit more friendly, make the environment a little bit more meaningful, more empowerment in the kind of work that they do. And it's perfect timing because the advances in technology is really allowing that to take place. Particularly in the white collar world, we don't standardize work as much as we did 30, 40 years ago. So, the technology is also allowing individuals to have the flexibility as well as enriching the work that they're doing. So I see those two trends, more job enrichment and more flexibility with the integration of technology is going to be a very different kind of a workplace than what we've experienced 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, and John, I can add to that. So I think there's going to be even more sense of this fail fast, agility, flexibility in the workplace. And not to say that things aren't efficient and not fast today, but I think as these folks continue to take these seats and take on these leadership roles, as we move into the future, I think it's going to just allow us to be much more agile, make decisions much more quickly, be more efficient because of the access to technology, because of the ability to kind of, again, think quickly, fail fast, move forward, don't have to check all the boxes, go through chains of approval. And so I think as we move into the future, you'll see more, at least for me, that's my perspective. You'll see more of that, just being able to run much faster, make decisions much more quickly and efficiently.
Thank you, Christina. Lisa, anything?
So the only thing I was going to add is I look forward to it because in financial services with regulations and compliance and people are not used to change. They think the old school way, it's come back into the workforce 5 days a week and getting to the 3 days, it's been hard. So I think that agility and seeing what people are looking for will be a welcome change.
Great, thank you. So another question came across from one of our participants is in the attempt to address the needs of such a wide span of generational groups, how would you address and ensure the need to develop a coherent and integrated, effective organization? Did we stump you?
There isn't a one size fits all. I think that's the takeaway. I do a lot of work with employee surveys. I do a lot of work with engagement in different kinds of climates, and it's amazing. It's all the things we're talking about. That the different employees, particularly in different generational cohorts, are motivated by very different things, and that's an opportunity for organizations to come up with progressive policies and programs. I mean, clearly you can have a uniform mission and a purpose, hold people accountable with performance management objectives. But, I think the key challenge is the fact that they're all, meaning these generational cohorts, are motivated by very, very different things. And understanding those differences and implementing the kinds of programs, whether it's training programs or flexibility or different kinds of benefit programs, are really important to have that cohesive culture within an organization.
The only thing I would add, in addition, is continually doing research and making sure we are changing to attract. So that's the thing that's really important. What worked, even pre-COVID doesn't work anymore. Sure. So being open to that change and evolving.
And I think the top-down approach is really important. So again, continuing to foster, a culture of positive and productive collaboration, respect, and Bill said this earlier, right? Appreciating differences and understanding what those look like. And I think breaking down the walls of us versus you. And again, I think the top-down approach would help that. So I think that's another part of, again, building a cohesive environment.
So throw this behavioral or experiential question out to you is, how have you had any work situations that you've handled that are good examples of differences in the generations, and how did you take care of that? Boy, that's 2 in a row. I've never done that. So
I actually think with tools, it's like people communicate differently. We were on a team call earlier in the week, and my boss had said, we were talking about implementing Microsoft Teams. And she said, there's ping, there's this, I can't. And messages are missed as a result of that. So just getting everyone on board, top down and bottoms up, I think. So we meet in the middle so everyone understands, the benefits of doing this and why and the logic. Once people understand and there's a benefit to it, people come on board.
okay, Christina, go ahead, Bill.
No. Christina?
No, the only thing I was going to chime in is from an early talent standpoint, I mentioned some of this earlier, is making sure that with the early talent that we're bringing in, that their voices are being heard and they have a seat at the table, and that the managers are embracing that. So I just wanted to add into that too. I think that's an important one. So sorry, Bill, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, not at all. I mean, an example would certainly be, promoting effective communication, acknowledging that particularly these different generational cohorts have very different communication preferences. And, that can create challenges, particularly when you're working in a team environment, a collaborative environment. So, a practical example would be to set expectations, right? Talk openly about communication preferences, but have guidelines, right? I mean, if you want to text me, that should be something that's just quick and to the point, maybe email a little bit more information. We should use phones, believe it or not, they have a purpose. Maybe if I'm going to share more personal information with you, and believe it or not, we should also promote in person. If I need to coach you, if I need to have, a relationship building experience, influencing you, disciplining you. So just letting people know we have different ways of communicating, but here's how we should be communicating it, right? I shouldn't be communicating a personal thing through text messages, which is sometimes, could create some kind of a discontent, particularly within teams.
Great. Thank you. So another interesting question came across. I'm going to just be honest with you. Over the business forums that we've done, and we actually started this in August of 2020. So about 6 months after we were all had to pivot 180 degrees in how we worked. I don't know if you got the message, but when we were told at Rutgers, it was on March 12th, 2020. And that, if you remember, Friday the 13th, it was a Friday the 13th, we were supposed to be out for 2 weeks. That was the thing. But since we've done these business forums, I don't think we've ever had as many questions coming from the audience throughout the entire program. So I think this topic resonates with a lot of people. So here's the question. How do you view a complex problem versus a complicated problem? They're not the same. Thoughts as to why that may be and why later generations seem to stumble on this question. What would your thoughts be on why that later generation stumbles on this question? Complex versus complicated.
And
So
why,
I think,
why earlier, younger workers have a challenge with that? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Well, they don't have the experience, right? If you're dealing with something that's, well, I look at complex as something that is unique, right? You need a unique amount of knowledge to solve the problem. Complicated could be a variety of things, just because it's difficult, you're balancing or juggling different kinds of balls in the air. That comes with experience, right? I think that's really where work experience is important. You can have all the education in the world and read all the books in the world, but until you've experienced juggling different balls and having to use very unique knowledge to solve some problems, and that comes from experience. And clearly all the things that JPMorgan and Prudential have been talking about with internship programs and training programs and putting people through different kinds of experiences will help them deal with complexity and the challenges of dealing particularly in a highly complex environment.
And it prepares you to deal with new situations as they arise, right? And complexity could also be global, influence without authority, right? Whereas complex could be process flows, right? If you do this, then this happens. But getting other people on board to solve a complex problem with things that you don't own, but you have to, have resolution to. So someone on my team that started in a new role, he said, this is actually a lot harder than I thought it would be when different situations arise. And, how do you answer with managing early career talent within programs? So, and it's interesting. Yeah.
And I think there's an added layer of coaching that comes in for the Gen Zs, right? It's being able to navigate this and say, it's okay not to know the answers. It's okay to, complex versus complicated. It's being able to know when you pull in your stakeholders, when you pull in your resources. And, the younger talent, the Gen Zers, they're so ambitious and so motivated, and they want to have all the answers and do it all. But sometimes you're just not going to. And Bill, to your point before, it's a bad experience. Sometimes you just need some of that, to be able to contribute. And that's okay too. So it's coaching these individuals to say, okay, you'll get there, and how to navigate that space. But they're super anxious and ambitious for sure.
That's excellent. In my coaching with young workers, I always make the point, because I think they're intimidated. They always need to know the answer. And I tell them, you need to be comfortable to say, I don't know. Right? I mean, they're afraid to say, I don't know, because they think it's a negative on them. And the worst thing to do is to try to solve something where, if you don't have the information or the knowledge to solve it, to say, I don't know. And, that sometimes is difficult for different kinds of people to say. And even older workers sometimes have problems saying, I don't know. But I think it's particularly important for this topic we were just talking about.
I think, looking back over my career, which has been, a long one at this point, is the most growth that I've experienced were through those I don't know moments, and also through those moments that I made a mistake,
right,
and not been afraid to admit that I made a mistake, and learning from them. I always, look at those learning opportunities as, okay, well, just because I messed up doesn't mean that I can't learn from it. And it just added, I think, to my career. And it was something I think that it was addressed very well. So I have another question here for you. Are there any common themes that you see across all of the generations that might be utilized to pull together a multi-generational team that is struggling? For example, work-life balance, salary, career growth. Any common themes that can help pull that multi-generational team together?
I think career development is one, John. I think that's a non-negotiable for most people in their careers, no matter where they are. I think people want to develop. They have high aspirations and high goals. And so I think if you gather a group of folks like that together, I think that could be a commonality amongst, at least in my opinion, a commonality amongst multiple generations. I also do think flexibility, because I think now over the past 2.5 years, while flexibility looks a little different for each of us, depending on where we are in our career journeys, I do think it's a commonality, because we all now have had a taste of it. Like prior to COVID, I never worked from home, and now I don't think I can function without it. So I think, again, it just looks and feels different, but I think that's a commonality amongst multiple generations. It's just how we lean into it and how we help each other navigate it. So I would say those are two for me, for that.
Thanks, Christina. Lisa, anything?
I actually agree with everything.
Ditto, right?
I think multi-generational career management is important. I think companies that do this well, they create maybe project teams initially that include multi-generational type staff members. Creating cross-generational mentorships, I think, helps. And it just sounds like something we've been saying over and over, but it's true. Flexibility, but interestingly, flexibility is important for different reasons, right? I think older workers may be thinking about phasing into retirement. workers who are now dealing with family responsibilities want the flexibility to basically balance work and family. And then the younger workers like the flexibility to kind of pursue their own personal growth and their own personal interests. So kind of combining flexibility with what we've been talking about, multi-generational career management type opportunities are two things to think about.
So we have about 10 minutes left. So I'm going to throw two more questions out there. First one, considering the needs of the multi-generational workforce as companies partner with consulting firms or even universities on talent acquisition and talent management initiatives, where do you, and this is a question more geared towards Christina and Lisa, where do you see the most opportunity for that collaboration? And what services or areas will companies need the most external help from?
So Lisa, you want me to, sorry, I see you moving. I want to make sure. Do you want to start, Lisa? Or you want me to start?
No, you can start.
Okay. So I have a few thoughts here. One of the things that comes to mind, though, is I think no longer are we in an environment where we grow up in the same career path. So when we're partnering with universities, it's really helping the university and the university helping us as an organization understand how can we work together to make sure that we're giving students the right opportunities, the right experiences, so they can come into an organization and be fungible talent, have transferable skills, and do multiple things, because we hire for potential, right? So I think Lisa mentioned something a little bit before about this. We're hiring for a job, but I want to make sure you can do 5 jobs, right? Not just the job we're hiring you for. So when we think about talent acquisition and really partnering with universities, it's like, what can we continue to give students exposure to, that when they come into an organization, even if they start off on a financial track, they can go off and do other things. So it's just, so I don't even know if I'm saying this the right way, but it's really just making sure we're steering away from these traditional career paths and really just opening up opportunities. So it's just understanding what the students are asking for and what opportunities we can give to students so they are able to do those types of things. So I'll pause there, at least if you want to jump in, but I have more thoughts.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is for corporate functions. So when you think of financial services or a bank, there's so many things that we do, and there's a variety of jobs that are not just financial services jobs. There's operations, there's HR, there's firm-wide functions such as audit, compliance. There's exciting work to do. So I think education on brand awareness of the types of jobs you can have, and at any industry, not just financial services, but for us, when we think of, and I'm sure at Pru as well, when you think of financial services, you think of asset and wealth management, or you think of investment banking, and people go in school for, corporate banking or finance or whatever. But there's so many jobs and there's so many areas that we can have open for, let's say, even a marketing major, right? We do marketing. We have like poli-sci, you can apply for our corporate program. There's a variety of backgrounds that have that transferable skills that you can do so many jobs within JPMorgan or Pru, or we even have our CAO, Chief Administrative Office. We have like dining, people that work in the dining halls, like, Cornell has hospitality. You wouldn't think JPMorgan for that, right? Or Pru, but just opening your minds to see career paths can be different, and so many organizations, pharmaceutical, have a variety of jobs that you may not have thought you would be interested in, and then you join and you can have a fulfilling career and move along the way. So the traditional career path that you envisioned maybe have twists and turns and can still be very exciting.
Thanks. So without generalizing, boy, I had trouble saying that, generalizing too much, what are the motivating factors? So we're going to talk about motivation now. What are the motivating factors for each generation in the workplace today as you see it? So Bill.
wrote a book on this.
That's an unfair advantage, Bill.
We'll let Bill take this one.
I mean, again, they're all different, right? I think when I think of boomers, they're really more interested in financial security and benefits. They're phasing into retirement. They still value professional development. Gen X's, they like independence, right? They want to be empowered. They like the freedom to make their own decisions. Again, work and family balance is one of their big drivers. Why we talked a lot about their interest in meaningfulness, working in collaborative type teams. They're not very patient. They want a fast career track, and if they don't experience it, many of them would leave pretty quickly. And then the word out on Z, then they're actually a little bit more focused on money than even Y. I think again they're more pragmatic, and they realize this is a crazy world that we're all kind of growing up in, and but they do value mentorships quite a bit. They do like the personal touch, having relationships with managers and mentors that can help them in their own careers. So very different drivers for each generation.
Christina or Lisa, anything to add?
Yeah,
I
I
think
think Bill's
that's
expert on this.
Yeah.
Being that he wrote the book on it, right? So
Wow.
Everything Bill said, I am aligned.
so one last, you always get this type of question thrown in at some point when you participate on a panel, and the moderator will ask that one word answer question. So this is it. So if you had to give a one word description for each generation in the workplace today, what would that be? So baby boomer, what would be that one word description?
They actually like teamwork too. Teamwork, I would
just
say.
Competitive.
Gen X.
Hardworking. No.
What, baby boomer or Gen X?
Oh, baby boomer. Sorry.
Baby
We're on
boomer.
Gen X.
Okay. Right. How about the Gen Xers?
I say hardworking for Gen X.
Okay.
Independent.
Okay.
Entrepreneurial.
And independent was, what you had said earlier as well, right? Did
Yeah.
you just say that too? Yeah.
Next one, Gen Y. Is that the next one after Gen X, or is that?
They don't always get positive words. Unfortunately, a lot of the negative words, which I don't necessarily agree with, is entitled. But I think the positive word is driven. They are very driven in accomplishing their own personal goals.
Mhm.
This is two words, but I say multitasker for them.
Yeah.
I say now.
Now.
They
Okay.
want everything, in my experience, everything now. And a little, like, the only negative would be like a little bit patience, because things take time. Unfortunately, things don't happen immediately.
And millennials.
Z.
Z, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're having a hard time with Z.
I know. I know.
I'd say passion and purpose too,
Hmm.
for Gen Z.
Progressive.
Yeah. Empowered.
Now, Bill, are we up to millennials now?
No, we passed millennials.
We
No,
passed
passed-
millennials.
Boomers
Okay.
X.
Got
What's
it.
confusing is why
They're Y.
and millennials are the same.
Yeah,
For
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
reason, we actually,
got it.
it's XYZ.
XYZ.
And-
All right. So
and the new generation that is now born now is the Alpha generation.
thanks for throwing another one in there, Bill. So
Well, they're still too young. They're in kindergarten.
okay, well, I just want to thank all of you. Christina, Lisa, Bill, for this very dynamic conversation. We've gotten some tremendous feedback about this. Just the fact that we were getting so many questions from the audience touched on how important this topic really is. So I really want to thank all of you for taking an hour out of your day to do this and share your wisdom with the alumni. And I look forward to hearing from you again. And thank you to the participants who took the time to attend. Have a great holiday season. Bye-bye.